talk about Microsoft Surface, Microsoft Modern Management, Endpoint Management, number of key elements here. This is essentially sponsored by Microsoft Sessions. So you see a lot of the content that I'm bringing to bear today is direct from Microsoft. I've woven a few other things in from my own experience. So the focus is around Surface, but I would really talk to you these days a lot of the broader context of what I talk about as we get into Intune and modern management concepts. Really do apply to almost any device, but my focus today will be a little bit more Surface heavy. And with that, in terms of agenda, I switched it up. If anybody's been to any of the past events before, this is, I think, the third of our year so far at a similar frame. I've changed the content around to give you a little bit of a preview around what's coming on the new devices, which I'm lucky enough to have one in front of me. I'll switch to that partway through the presentation and talk about some of the latest innovation coming to Surface. And then really talk about security, modern management, the world of Windows 11, some other things that you get out of Surface with that modern management story as well. I do definitely encourage, keep it interactive. If you've got questions, I'm turning it on now. I've got the chat window up here, so feel free and either throw your questions in chat. I'm also okay if you want to interrupt me. I think we got lots of time today, so happy to make it interactive as we go. So, borrowing a little bit from, if anybody went to Microsoft Ignite in October, I'm borrowing from some of their themes here, but I switched up the starting point of our slides here, really talking about, the top trends that we're seeing. For the past year, I think I've started a lot of slide decks talking about our new world is hybrid work, all of that. I think the trending, it's all hybrid. It's all the time. I'm seeing with all of our clients, often I may be in the same city as one of our clients. We're potentially only 10 minutes away, yet we're still meeting primarily over Teams like we are today, for example. So I think there's still that shift that is really hit our industry or organizations across the world, that hybrid's really here to stay. All of us really, I think, do know what that term means these days. And our landscape's changed, where we're using the workplace for other things that we've done before. We're coming in to collaborate, spend time together and see each other and connect. But we're always also going to know we have to collaborate and communicate with those people that are still at home that didn't make it to the office that day. On top of that, in terms of trends, security threat landscape keeps getting worse. More and more of a concern, especially given hybrid is here to stay. We really need to rethink how we're doing security, which I'll dive into a little bit deeper. And then, the other big trend is everybody's been on a cloud transformation. The pandemic certainly hit that wave and made it more real. Organizations stepped into, hybrid Active Directory, moving to Exchange Online, using Teams or Zoom or whatever it is. That cloud transformation journey is really here to stay. So I borrowed this from one of the Ignite sessions in terms of some really good screen captures I thought relevant for today. But the experience and the use of technology is really what's becoming top of mind for folks in IT. So some of the stats here, in 2021, 20% of employees contact the service desk every week. And 10% of them in our user base contact the help desk daily. So that need for support, the need of using the tools is really only gone up. And in many organizations, we haven't necessarily made the experience better to handle our new reality of hybrid work. That really does mean that there are too many users not being productive, still learning how to do their jobs remotely, leverage the technology as well as we should. So I think everything that we do here on out in IT, our focus really has to become that technology experience. And what are we doing to help enable it or get enough time back in our day so that we can focus around enabling it? This is back to my usual slides, welcome to the world of hybrid work. It really is that critical time. We've got more meetings than ever before because that's the way we now connect. It's not just people huddling in the office anymore because we're not all there. So that's really driven that need to leverage technologies, bring meeting spaces to bear at home, having a device that sounds good, that makes us look good. Because all of our staff, the trend that we're seeing, every employee wants to be seen, they want to be heard, and more importantly, understood, regardless of where they are. So, how do we enable that? How do we bring the right kind of technologies to bear that make that happen? So, in my view, as we think about user experience and satisfaction and how well a device works, that sort of concept of a modern device strategy really does become essential. We need to look at how do we keep our staff productive? How do we have them have a seat at the table, even if they're sitting on their kitchen table at home? Connecting with those office staff, modern devices really can bring about that sort of modern workplace feel where the technology is there with us and supporting whatever it is we're doing in our roles for any organization. So when it comes to Microsoft Surface, biggest kind of term I connect to it is premium. I've listed a number of the key points here in terms of the display technology, audio quality, camera quality, and then some of the latest innovations, which I'll save, I won't preview yet, that really do make it, not just your average computing device, the look and feel of devices. I know personally, I'm a huge fan of the Surface Pro. It took me a little while to get used to kickstand. Now I love the device because I'm always on the road and traveling. Others, though, really tend to like the traditional format factor of the Surface laptop, for example, or any of the sort of specialized devices in between. To me, the biggest difference, though, is the technology that goes into these things is focused to be premium. They're not trying to meet a price point. They're trying to give you the premium experience that users need or have come to expect in our organizations. So keeping up with the times in terms of what hardware is inside the device, but more importantly, kind of the blend of hardware and software, which really, as we head towards the security conversation in a minute, that really drives that feel. In my personal use of these, I happened to get convinced by some of the folks at Microsoft to switch to Surface Pro maybe about 3 months before the pandemic hit. And early days was am I liking this kickstand? I don't know. How does it work when I move around? And the pandemic, what it really taught for me when I was working from home, when I was really sick of sitting at my desk every day, then when I picked up that device, the Surface Pro, and walked to the kitchen counter, to the couch for my next meeting, everybody heard me just fine when I was using the speaker and the built-in microphone. And for me, that was almost a first-time experience. When I've leveraged laptops in the past, it always meant I needed a headset on. I know Sil, I think he's on the line, could attest to, I hear it from him all the time. Put your headset on. We can't hear you well enough. That theme often that comes with your average laptop device.
Yeah, so. And never the case with Nigel with his Surface.
There you go. They're the only one he doesn't harp at for that, right? But so to me, that was my eye opener. The things I didn't, I'd heard the messaging, hadn't really believed it until I started using the device. But I get comments all the time around camera quality. Why do I look so good? What are you using? And I'm not saying some fancy, expensive peripheral, just the Surface laptop hardware. So it really, I can attest to my personal experience in that sort of premium design feel. So extending really exactly what we're talking about here, the enablement around collaboration, thinking about a device that looks good, sounds good, lightweight to carry around, but the level of deep depth that you see in some of the bullet points here that I'm not going to read to you, but background noise, how do we get rid of that? How do we put the right technology in so that all you're hearing is my voice when I'm speaking? And leveraging some of modern technology that helps get us there. So it really is a truly collaborative device. At the same time, obviously, the form factor, touchscreen, leveraging the Surface Pen on your device. That's the one that, in my opinion, trying many different manufacturers, using a pen and device, which I've been doing since maybe 2006, I think was the first device I got so that I could use Microsoft OneNote with a pen and a tablet. So I've been a big believer of using touch and handwriting on a laptop for a long time. The one that feels the best, in my opinion, that feels the closest to, pen on paper is the combination of the Surface Pen on a Surface device. Even the shape of the screen, they make it essentially replicate the feel of the page. So these days, if I'm writing on a proposal or a document, I will often pop off my keyboard on the Surface Pro, turn it over sideways, make it look like I read. Meanwhile, my wife might go and print the 300 pages of the proposal and sit there and edit it. I do the same thing, but I'm using my pen to do it online. And as I do that, everybody sees the notes that I take that go into that we can mark up and keep collaborating. So really collaboration kind of from that audio-visual experience through to how do you incorporate touch or leveraging Microsoft Whiteboard in meetings, then really, to me, that's sort of part of that premium context of the device. So 50,000 foot view, around the value that Surface hardware brings really gets broken into these camps. A lot of what I talked about so far is really focused on that productivity element. A flexible device or multiple different versions of device really designed to maximize productivity and collaboration. A lot of what I'll talk about next starts talking about the simpler IT processes. Today I'm going to go less into it, but if any of you haven't heard of what Windows Autopilot is, I'd love it if you could raise your hand, and then I'll know if I should spend a little bit more time on that. But these days, that's I feel like a broken record. I talk about Autopilot, how it benefits so much. But today I'm going to focus on the broader management concepts, a little less on that. But if you're unfamiliar, feel free, raise your hand. I'll keep an eye on hand raises, and I'll dive into it. I'll go a little bit deeper. But it's kind of the first time, in my opinion, that okay, I see a hand raise. So it's the first time to me that management tools are actually truly getting to the point where it's improving the user experience. So when you think of Windows Autopilot, the way I would compare it is, as everybody knows, what we've done with enterprise management of devices, Windows machines, for example. We basically do a wipe. We take off whatever the manufacturer gave us. We essentially format the hard drive. We load our image onto it. Why? Because we trust our image. It's got the security settings we want. We have the suite of apps that every user should get. All of the policies that our organization needs to apply onto the device. And that's why we've always done imaging. I'd be the first one to kind of say imaging really is dead. Here we are in 2022. Wasn't sure I'd ever see that day. And it's real to the point we've helped dozens of organizations get there or be a part of their journey to really see what Windows Autopilot brings. But the value is the experience. The difference being, instead of that traditional drop your image on, your machine's all set up how you want with Autopilot. You're configuring it all cloud-based management, so really relying on tools like Intune, but it could be other unified endpoint management solutions. What it does is you configure the app packages, those security policies and settings inside of the cloud. And as long as the device hardware that you have, you've registered essentially the hardware hash, they call it, of the hardware into your Intune tenant. When that device first powers up for the very first time, it knows that it's attached to, in my case, Microserve's tenant. And the first time it powers up, it'll say, welcome to Microserve. Please log in. And as soon as I go ahead and log in, all the stuff that happened during the imaging steps of the past happen on top of that OEM image that the device already came with. And we can transform that machine from factory to exactly what imaging gave us. All of the settings, all the apps being applied specific to my user context. And better than that, I didn't need to be connected to our local office or have that network connectivity where imaging and policies from my on-premise Active Directory came from, things like that. You start shifting everything that we did there into cloud. So essentially that really helps speed up both from the management side of not having big monolithic images to update, maintain, inject new drivers every time there's a driver change, all of that kind of stuff that goes into care and feeding for an image. Now we invest that time towards Autopilot configuration and testing. And the end result being we worry a whole lot less about having to wipe a machine and all the time to test and figure out drivers local on the device. We're using what the manufacturer already gave us instead. So hopefully that helps answers for the hands that did go up, not knowing what Autopilot was, but feel free to throw a question in if I can help explain better and go into more detail. I want to cover that because I'm not going to go into slides like sometimes I do in that topic today. Security, again, the big focus, the theme on a Surface, but as you'll see in a minute with Windows 11, broadening that beyond Surface, the concept of really security from chip to cloud. So the integration of hardware and software has never been as close as it has today as we head to modern operating systems. This really helps drives every IT security organization focused around a zero trust security framework. So really where we don't trust your device until we've proven that it's good. And Intune modern management, that's what starts enabling that type of security, but also the device and the hardware, where it's integrated from the hardware layer all the way through the stack. Accessibility, providing a device that gives you all the, whether it's color coding and tagging of how devices peripherals plug in, support for, essentially devices that are designed for inclusiveness so that everyone in the organization can contribute. So, I touched on security. I don't want to sit here with the big doom and gloom. This is kind of the only chart I have there. I think everybody's more than aware our concerns these days around security are growing. So there's a bit of a yin and yang, if you will, though, around security versus productivity. So if we go back to that where I started on the top trends that focused around empowering users, making them productive, leverage the right technology properly, sometimes often counters everything we're doing to mitigate some of the stats that we see on this slide. So how do we bridge that gap, tie it back together, still give a user a phenomenal experience, at the same time meeting our security needs and whatever our journey is towards zero trust security? So I think I mentioned this a minute ago, that really that concept of from chip to cloud, I was thinking about the hardware layer of the device that's running it, through the operating system to the applications, the identity, and then the cloud components in terms of management, in terms of application access and access control. We need to think about it from that chip to cloud view these days when we're provisioning and buying new devices. This is the entire gamut. And whatever we're doing at the operating system now needs to better tie into hardware, better tie into threat protection, for example. And really, Surface has been the leader in this space. As you'll see in a minute when I start talking about innovation and what's coming, you'll see it's expanding now, but I've had this slide for 3 years, talking to the fact that at a firmware layer, thinking about firmware defense, essentially, which is essential in a modern IT endpoint management landscape, we have to be protecting the firmware and the hardware of a device. Microsoft brought in, Surface Enterprise Management Mode. Tying into the firmware itself is really something unique through what's called DFCI, which enables us to manage. I can centrally manage and say that, if our security policy didn't allow it, every Surface device, I'm going to shut off its camera. And I could do that easily with management suite that we have with a device like that. So being able to take sort of governance control at a hardware layer with not a lot of how do I script this? How do I use a bunch of the OEM tools married up with my management software to deploy configuration changes at a firmware level, for example, that really needs to get exposed and get easier if we're going to do our jobs better to meet the security demands of today. So a new piece to really touch on. A lot of people are kind of, do I care about Windows 11? I know the OEMs are going to make us start deploying Windows 11 because it comes on our new devices. What I did want to highlight, what I liked seeing in this year's Microsoft Ignite, so that graphic came from October's Ignite sessions with Microsoft, where it really is the integration into hardware. So now you're seeing all the other OEM suite. I know I'm here really talking about Surface at Microsoft, but I'm glad to say that they've been the innovator in this space, but they've now expanded where secured core PCs is a concept. And there's key manufacturers and partners that start extending that same reach that Surface has done for quite a while into hardware. And there's a list of, models, manufacturers that accommodate for this to try and address the sensitivity and security, but then guarding against my bottom bullet, sophisticated attacks that really get you protection down to the firmware level. Today, this is critical. This is where a lot of our threats are coming. And organizations need to have a solid firmware defense strategy. So leveraging the right device, the right hardware that's capable of that, I think is more essential than it ever has been. So, tied to that, Windows 11 is bringing about some innovation beyond just the next flavor of Windows 10. This one caught me for a loop when I first saw it. Was Defender SmartScreen. Okay, it's just Microsoft Defender, who cares? But introducing it in a way that, okay, so if my email defense falls apart and, well, users being users still click that link because I got an email and I want to know what it is. And maybe I was about to enter my credentials on a screen that looked just like a Microsoft logon page. As soon as I click that button, if you can see that screenshot, Defender SmartScreen kicks in and goes, hold up, we actually know this is a malicious URL. We're going to stop you in your tracks. So introducing OS level tools, thanks to the insights and the data from the broader Microsoft security ecosystem, to me, I thought that was really interesting and good to note for organizations that haven't really deep dived into Windows 11 yet. So I kind of thought I'd share a little bit of highlight around that. So coolest thing that I'm excited about today that I wanted to weave in as we did this session is looking at some of the new hardware. So 5th gen Surface Pro or the Laptop 5 being the two big ones that have recently come out. And it's really taken, the next level of what I've already talked about around Surface hardware, in my opinion. Same thing, phenomenal form factor, all the usual stuff. The Surface Pro 5G also comes in an ARM-based processor. That's the one I'll demo for you in a sec. I'm going to switch my meeting to that device. But all the same benefits it had before, but the innovation and technology to me goes to next level. And that's what I want to just be able to screen share and show you. The combination of Windows 11 built on top of the latest editions of Surface devices is pretty next level, in my opinion. So has anybody ever heard of an MPU? Everybody knows what a GPU is and a CPU. This one was also news to me, where I get excited at one of the Ignite sessions, which, by the way, that's a screenshot from. You got the bottom right there, that's Panos Panay, that essentially owns Windows and Surface, within Microsoft. But the concept of an MPU, or a neural processing unit, this one I thought was pretty amazing. So everybody uses Teams or Zoom, and we turn on our background effects. I don't know if anybody's also noticed that when you do that for your meetings, when you're doing it all in the software, which is just AI behind the scenes running it, your processor spikes up. Or if you're lucky enough to have a GPU or graphics processing, you'll watch performance of those devices go up substantially while you're running them. So that means your apps maybe run a little bit slower, or you're running this presentation and your click times are delayed, whatever the end result might be. So what Microsoft did in their newest layer of Surface, they've introduced an MPU, and that essentially offloads the AI intense operations onto a dedicated processor just for essentially for AI type of technology running on the local device. So the big ones it's done, which is what I'll screen share and show you a little bit of, is things like automatic framing. Today you go and buy a great third-party high-end camera, or your boardrooms might have it, where if I move around, it's going to track me. I do have a nice camera here. You'll notice in a sec it should grab me and reframe me with any luck. That's done on a hardware device today. What Surface did is give you the same thing, but just native to their hardware inside of the laptop device. But there's also cool things around making eye contact and turning a setting on and off. And then most importantly, turning on backgrounds or background blur, for example, at a high resolution. That's hugely computational intensive. So doing this on a dedicated processor really brings about a level at which, if you can see in that screenshot, the processor, the GPU aren't getting touched. I start my meeting, I've turned on some effects. Instead of the software, I'm doing it at the hardware layer, thanks to Surface. And you notice I'm not chewing up the performance of my device. So everything I've been doing is done now. My meeting experience can be better. I can run the 52 apps I might have open and know that my meeting's not chewing out the performance because I needed to turn on some effects to give a nice pretty background like I have now, or auto framing and some of the AI-based features. So that I'm just going to try and switch. I'm going to switch my meeting here to the Surface so you can see what the camera looks like in real life, and get off my peripheral device to show you that I'm not cheating here. So first I'm getting sorry, could not connect me. Give me one more second. That's what we'll transfer to this device. So you'll see me flip over in just 1 second here. Okay. Am I still with everybody? Can you see me?
Wow. Wow. So nice and clear.
Yeah, so now I'm on Surface Pro 9 G5. You can see I've got a black background blur happening. That's running on my GPU today. So essentially, you start seeing some of the benefit, the camera quality. Again, I'm not talking through a peripheral or anything else. This is native on the device. So kind of a live experience there. But what I thought I'd do, other than just getting to see my ugly mug on screen in higher definition than you might be used to, I'll just share out my desktop and show you what the settings look like. And maybe this is techie or too techie for some, but I think kind of relevant in this context to show you the blend of Windows 11 OS with Surface hardware. So I just went into the settings of my device, same as always. But what you're going to see is a few different options. Now, the first one I'm showing you, and the other one I didn't talk about on our slide, is something called voice focus. So same thing, instead of using your Teams or Zoom software to turn off background noise reduction, we can do this at a hardware layer. You'll see under audio enhancements here, it says Windows Studio Voice Focus. I can turn this on or off. In my case, it might not make a difference because Teams is still running, but what's going to do it, if I turn that off, I'm not doing it at hardware anymore. So this is all hardware-based when I turn voice focus on. It'll cut out the background noise. I'm happy to share a link out to the one session that if you didn't watch anything at Microsoft Ignite, it's worth watching. I can give you the timings. It's about 3/4 of the way through the session. They do a live test, and on stage with, I don't know, it's got to be at least 100 people in the room. They get a guy out with a guitar. He's playing the guitar. Everybody starts making noise. The only thing is no voices, because that's what it's designed to pick up. And literally when he turns this on or off on the recording, it goes from this crazy loud room to flicking that on switch. And then all of a sudden, complete silence. All you're picking up is voice. So that's kind of the first one to show you. And then if I go into the camera settings, it's going to take me close. Sorry. Tell I didn't practice this piece here. Sorry. Manage cameras. So if you can see my screen here, you see obviously the Surface, I get a front and rear cam. Personally, I still haven't really found the use on the rear camera, but it might be great if I'm in a meeting and want to show somebody something in the room. But when I go into that Surface camera, I get this view where you see camera effects built into the device, into Windows. So auto framing on or off. This is again where I can do the things that other cameras used to do. It's getting done at AI, leveraging that NPU. You see it just framed me. I moved about 2 feet over to the left and back of my desk here. And then if I pull myself forward, you see it does the same effect. So built into the hardware in your laptop, I think that's pretty cool. Usually that's sort of reserved in the high-end peripherals that you're adding to a device, built right into essentially a combination of Windows 11 OS and the Surface hardware. The other one, maybe you guys can tell me if this works or not. I have played with it before, but eye contact. So even, the comment is you always try and look at the camera when you're presenting like I am now. But if I'm reading at the bottom of the screen, which I am now, watch my eyes when I turn it off. and then back on. I turn it off. Can you tell the difference? Can anybody notice
That
that?
that was probably a little bit subtle.
Very subtle, but a noticeable, you almost see your eyelids open up a little bit more.
Oh, definitely seen that.
So yeah, and that's kind of a subtle thing, but a minute change that just helps improve that, being seen. When I'm looking and reading content at the bottom of my screen, it actually does make that minute bit of difference for anybody watching, essentially your video feed coming into their meeting. So I thought that was a pretty cool one. And then you got the background effects again done at the hardware level. I can do this in, my meeting client, but I can switch it from the heavy blur background as you see here, which really makes me pop out, to just a portrait blur. So I usually like the portrait. That's kind of what I leave it at when I'm in meetings. And enabling some of that is just, done at a hardware level. The benefit here, really tying that back, is the fact I'm not relying on, my processor or my GPU, but it is this dedicated, neural processing processor. So, that gives you a bit of a taste of, the experience there. Now, I'll pause a little bit because that was a new one. I wanted to show you demo stuff that is really brand new on a device that's only really just come out. But anybody have any questions or opinions or thoughts there, and what that experience is like?
I'm not sure if anybody is experiencing the same thing I see, Nigel, but as I see you on the left of my screen, there's also Marvin as a guest on the right. Maybe this is something that I've done wrong on my side, but
It might be camera could be turned on, but then blacked out or something.
oh, okay.
Guess.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. It should flip back here. I might.
Hey, Phil, if you go and pin for me, it'll get rid of that.
That's true. Yeah, thanks, Matthew.
I do have a
you
comment
can
on
pin me.
your demo there, if you don't mind. I think the noise reduction thing was like night and day. It was amazing.
You can tell the difference. Okay, that's
Big
good to
time.
know.
There's a
I
lot
haven't
of
really done
background
a lot
noise
of
on that.
recording testing.
Yeah. The eyes thing were a little creepy for me, but that's
It's a little bit creepy. You're right. Yeah, but
other than
also
that,
cool
it was
in my
interesting.
opinion. I give a lot of people advice. In your meetings, I don't want you staring at the other screen, and I'm looking at your chin while you're presenting. It's that little bit of moving up and down, right? But no, really good point. I'm glad to hear that you could tell the audio thing, even in my space here. Yeah.
Big time.
And I did, Matthew. I did the pin for me, and it worked. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
You're welcome.
Helping out with tech support. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into my presenter view here on the Surface. So I'm going to stay on this for the rest of the meeting here. So bear with me while I jump back into slides. And of course, I got to jump back to where we were because I switched machines. Normally it does remember. So there you go. That's a kind of a live view of the impact of some of the effects that comes to you on a premium device like the new versions of Surface. Again, I got pretty excited realizing this whole new processor I had no idea existed up until a couple months ago, and many still don't. So I think that's going a long ways to improving that meeting experience where the device I'm running, I can do some of the cool effects and not impact the performance of my machine. So jumping into the management side to it, I'm going to try and stay relatively high level today. I could talk techie about this all day long, but first and foremost, pulling from some of the Ignite slides in October, Microsoft really came out of the woodwork in the last few years as a leader in UEM, which for those that don't know, Unified Endpoint Management. So the idea, I got one tool that I'm managing my Windows fleet, my Mac fleet, my Linux fleet, my iOS and Android fleet, all under one set of tools. So, gone are the days of I've got SCCM that manages my Windows machine, and maybe another application that's managing my Mac fleet, and an MDM tool that manages my mobile devices. So the concept really, as we head into what's now known as officially Intune product family, is all of that combines under one. And the innovations they brought this year alone have been tremendous. So, if it's a couple of years ago, you looked at Intune, have another look, but where they're headed, they're innovating faster than many out there. And some of the stats is what we're seeing as a result on that slide. So this comes about into the last session I did only in September, I think was the last time we gave one of these. This slide said Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Well, thanks to the Microsoft marketing engine, they've changed the names on us again. They've decided that all things UEM or endpoint management focus, even Config Manager, the old version we used to think of as SCCM, now is a part of the Intune product family. So, kind of a sneak peek of the world that keeps changing on Microsoft marketing. Intune is still truly that cloud-based component of management, but it's an Intune product family. So now it's Intune Config Manager if you're still going to rely on server-based management where it makes sense to. Many organizations don't even need that component. But large multi-thousand device environments where you're pre-staging hundreds if not thousands at a time or needing bare metal based imaging, there are still pockets that Config Manager can do well. But the best piece here is co-managing that and leveraging the strength of Intune, which really gives us things like autopilot in terms of how we provision a device, much better than in the past. The newest one that I think I did add a slide to as well is there's going to be a new license, thanks to Microsoft, for some cooler features coming around what they're calling advanced endpoint management. So for those orgs that need a little bit more than already what this week could give us, there's going to be some cool things coming there. One of which I'm going into more detail because I was pretty excited about that. And in my opinion, might be worth the license price. Big theme across everything when we think of unified endpoint management tools, though. My view as a service provider, as I know Matthew knows, others know, to me, it's how do we simplify our lives to focus on, serving our end clients, spending time not, turning dials in the back end, trying to manage and control devices, and a whole lot of time going to building images and whatnot. We need to get to that kind of beautiful story of things like zero trust deployment, managing them remotely, managing them effectively from a security standpoint, but doing it easier than we've ever done before. Certainly, I'm all in under this track. What we've seen in feedback within our own internal IT teams is our time and our effort to manage is on the decrease. It's getting the clients that we get to bring into this fold and start leveraging the technology, really helps simplify. We're not spending all of our time selecting which patches go out this month and hitting the approve button and pushing out to certain pilot groups all by hand. All these steps that took a lot of planning, a lot of time and energy, now is essentially I assign your device into patch deployment rings essentially, and I say what your target OS is. Are we moving up to feature updates? If tomorrow I want Windows 11 across a Microserve, I change a drop down and I hit save. And then watch it come out. But now our admins are now focused on looking at a vulnerability dashboard, looking at which machines for some reason didn't get those updates. That's where we want to spend our time. We don't want to spend it trying to click through, configure, figure out how to push updates out to devices. Quite frankly, it is a waste of time. We've been doing it for the last 30, 35, 40 years, trying to manage our endpoints effectively, though. I'm certainly bought in. I watched a lot of our clients as we modernized their management of endpoints, really head in that same direction as well. So certainly love to explore conversations with any of you that are interested in seeing it more or going a little bit deeper there. So a lot of, what I talk about, some of the value that comes with it is around that sort of cloud management. So not just doing everything inside of my network in my office here in Burnaby, but thanks to the world of hybrids, we need to be able to manage those same devices when they're at home. And when Sill's on the road traveling across our provinces to all our client parties and connecting to hotels and Wi-Fi networks galore, we need to make sure we've got security behind that wherever that device is, and the cloud manageability is really helping with that. Sill, did you want to say something?
They're all done, by the way.
What's that, sorry?
I said they're all done, by the way, all our customer events. Thank God.
That's right. Yeah, a busy little while, right?
Yeah.
But so the paranoia maybe for you is down, but no matter where we are, essentially, that's sort of what the tools start giving us, is that ability to manage wherever they are. Again, with that theme of changing where our time goes, to me, I think this is another big element to look at. If you're not familiar, you haven't heard of, Intune Endpoint Analytics. This is what we're weaving into within our managed clients where we do endpoint management, what we're weaving into every quarterly business review, where we're trying to reskill our level 1 service desk to be able to leverage. And if you look at that screenshot on the screen, it is giving my organization a score. Again, this is just a sample here, a score in terms of how are our fleet performing. And that's broken down to things like you see on here for startup performance, app reliability, big theme there, overall performance, and then ability to, are we enabled to work from anywhere? So it ends up giving you a score. Each of these sections you can click through and drill down. Huge insights into your fleet and your environment. And that really help us start being proactive about realizing needing that latest update from Adobe because Adobe started crashing everywhere. This is what gives us that insight. Instead of looking at the view I'm in, like sort of the reporting at a corporate wide, where I talk about, level 1 service desk jumping in. If SIL calls in, hey, something's going on with the machine, I'm not happy with it. It's taking forever to boot up. Well, part of our diagnosis now, if we enable our teams and retrain them on leveraging this technology, then the service desk staff, they can log in. They can go and search for, SIL's device or devices, drill into one, have a look at the individual computer score, and analyze essentially what's going on. Maybe that'll tell us enough. Sometimes it doesn't, but largely we'll have better insight into, well, your machine's actually performing not bad, but wait a minute, I did notice it's slow startup. What can we do to improve that? So it changes our spin and how we can analyze problems, but more importantly, I think proactively look at how we solve some of these things. So I mentioned this new piece, which of course is yet another new Microsoft license coming. There's a bit of a theme at Ignite around that. I grabbed one screenshot out of the Ignite presentation that I thought would be worth sharing. So if you're already in Intune, you're already doing some really good things here. But maybe, a common example, everybody has some other remote control tools, TeamViewer. Inside of Microserve, we use a managed services tool called Enable. There's a whole suite of tools dedicated just to remote controlling devices. Microsoft started by trying to license that independently. They clearly kind of heard from the feedback of the world that we should integrate more into that, not just a remote control tool. So I'm happy they seem to have heard that component. There's an advanced view of endpoint analytics that I just showed you that's also really amazing. So it's going to start using AI to look for anomaly detection, like spot trends of weird things happening on particular devices. So excited to see what comes out of that. But the most important one, in my opinion, is looking at this endpoint privilege management. So when you think about security and coming back to that productivity story, what every IT admin or CISO or security person will say, you got to get rid of admin rights. Any cybersecurity maturity assessment or vulnerability scan that you might run, that's one of the first things that comes back more often than not for clients that just haven't done it. Normally you haven't done it because your apps aren't packaged and users need an app today for whatever they're doing, and you're not really owning the experience for them. But of course, then if you turn off admin, what happens? 6,000 more calls to your help desk. Well, now I can't do what I want. I needed a WebEx meeting today, but WebEx wasn't installed. Some of that we've already been able to address thanks to modern management, where all of those common apps that maybe aren't required on every machine, but we already package. And essentially then we have the company portal loaded on every machine. It's like your corporate version of an app store of all the apps that are approved, that are prepackaged. That means I can click on it and install Adobe tomorrow. And I needed no admin rights to do it. So that was great. But there's always scenarios, a common theme is, adding a local printer when I come home, and maybe the drivers it loads needs admin rights. There could be valid reasons or certain apps that maybe just didn't get packaged yet. So what endpoint privilege management is going to do, and I say, this is coming out in preview early 2023, who knows after that when it'll be production and live, but integrated into your OS. So there's third parties that do this too. But you can see on the left, I have an app sitting on my desktop. I right click, I can go run with elevated access. That pops up and gives me essentially a little request form. Well, why the heck do you need admin rights? What are you trying to do? So this user doesn't have it now, but they pick sort of a list of pre-approved, here's my justification. This is something I really do need to do. That request then gets sent off to your admin team. And they'll review the justification. If it's a valid reason, they'll say yes, and bang, you're able to run that up, and you'll be notified when you can. So I do like seeing some of that innovation coming native to the combo of Windows 11 with Intune as your UEM tool. Cool to see that built in and not having to try and create bolt-on third-party solutions to handle privileged admin access, for example. Any thoughts or questions there before I keep going? Okay.
A crowd today, Nigel.
All good. Yeah. So I already talked, a little bit about some of the value of Windows 11, in my opinion. Security is the key focus to it. A lot of what Windows 11 did and why the conversation is always, well, but I need some new hardware. Not all my fleet can support it, is because they've enforced the things that if we were running Win 10 right, we were doing anyways. BitLocker, TPM 2.0, all that kind of stuff. But with Windows 11, it just kind of strong-armed us to going, now it's a mandatory. We've got to think about security as a part of it. So I think there's a lot of value in the concept of just getting there. The other, component that you really see native to Windows 11, again, we could do a whole nother hour webinar just on those top tracks, but whether you're looking at Azure Virtual Desktop or Cloud PC, making the concept of VDI or remote desktop in days of old really native to the operating system. There is a Win365 Cloud PC app native to Windows 11 in preview mode right now, but it gives me control where I can right click and I can restore my desktop to a previous point from up to like 14 days ago. So some really cool technology that's making it easier for users. So maybe they're on a personal device that's totally unmanaged or belongs to a different corporation, but when they work for you, you need to switch context, then AVD or Cloud PC becomes a phenomenal option, better enabled through security thanks to Windows 11 and having it run native. This next year, we're going to see a lot of change and improvements and innovations there, like even booting into cloud from your device natively into your Cloud PC, for example. So lots of cool innovations coming. Biggest thing I'd say for those worried about a move to Windows 11 from Win 10, Microsoft's data on it is 99.7% app compat. If it worked on Win 10, there's a high likelihood it's going to work on Windows 11. We need to be a little less fearful about app compat days of old. But obviously, you still want to do your testing phases, all the usual kind of rigor that you go through. But the biggest thing I'd want to leave you with here is they've designed Windows 11 to be 100% compatible with a Win 10 fleet. You don't need to wait and do a big bang and have all your machines upgraded at the same time because you're worried about, still running Win 10 because he likes his old OS and don't give him a change, and I'm running Windows 11. I can say I've been running Win 11 for over a year now and collaborating with others in Microserve on the Win 10 fleet. It's designed to be run side by side. So you don't need to say, well, we'll only go there when we refresh the rest of our fleet that can support it. Start now, start getting used to it, start building your next flavor of autopilot deploy that will start pushing out Windows 11. That's certainly my opinion. The security benefit, some of the productivity enhancements are worth it in my opinion, and it's worth going there. Quickly, kind of the last thing to touch on for today, back to the Surface focus is taking Intune one step further. So, there's the Surface Management Portal. Why do we care? Again, it's about reducing IT costs. It's about giving some self-serve back. And better than that, giving IT admins a better tool to essentially manage your fleet. So at a high level, I'm not going to demo all the components of the screenshots here, but built natively into Intune, you'll see there's a Surface Management Portal now all the Surface fleet that you have. You understand your warranty expiry dates. You can open cases with Microsoft for hardware repair. The other plug I should give, because I saw this hit our marketing a little while ago, we're now an authorized service provider for repair of Surface hardware. So, if you log that ticket, it might be coming to us now to help you fix it. Where this gets more interesting is being able to look at compliance, obviously looking at your overall health of your device fleet, but diving into detail around warranty coverage and refresh planning, for example. All the data under one pane of glass, tied without needing third-party tools to suck out warranty information or gather it if you weren't tracking it already. Already mentioned the support component of integrating with the ability to support your devices. So my clicking stopped for some reason. See if I can manually click. And essentially, yeah, there we go. Just delayed for some reason. That's really it from the Surface endpoint management side. There's a lot of new innovations popping up in Intune now. There's public preview mode of vulnerability management. I know our Alex, our cybersecurity specialist, got really excited when I showed him. Now we can track every browser extension in an environment and look at a pane of glass, similar to what we just saw for Surface management. Now we can do that and look at some of the scarier things, browser extensions, firmware updates across your whole fleet. As that new add-on comes in for vulnerability management, I'm going to see a lot of uptick there, would be my guess. So kind of to wrap things up for us here, Surface portfolio, I think hopefully you get experience. And while I'm on a Surface right now, I can see the hub over there behind me as well. Phenomenal product line, really helps achieve some of that, enabling employees to be seen and heard, and more importantly, to really have a voice at the table, whether they're at their kitchen table or in their boardroom. So you extend that combination with Surface built into the broader M365 ecosystem, and you've got a better together story. Combining the right sort of workplace productivity software with the hardware really designed to support it really does make a difference. So with that, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate everybody joining and listening to me rant a little bit about some of what I like in Surface products and how we should manage devices.